What's going on, folks? This is Lenny with another game overview video, and today we'll be looking at Touhou Luna Nights. This game is brought to you by Team Ladybug and was released on PC back in 2018 as an early access title and then fully released in early 2019. The game can now also be found for the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One. Touhou Luna Nights is a metroidvania with heavy emphasis on action elements. The game has a pretty neat time manipulation system which basically drives most of the mechanics. More on that later. You start out as a maid forced into an alternate world set in the Touhou universe. What's the Touhou universe, you may ask? Well, let's just say it's a fantasy universe created by Japanese indie developers and dates back to 1997, if Wikipedia serves me right. But let's just say it's a universe with plenty of history behind it and many projects have spun off of it. So back to the setting, you start as a maid forced into this fantasy world by someone you know and who seems to be just interested in playing games and for you to entertain her. And obviously things evolve from there. The time manipulation mechanic is pretty cool. You start out with the ability to slow time, but quickly gain the ability to completely stop time for a few seconds. With the time stopped, you're still free to move around and attack. Your attacks won't take effect until the time resumes though. So normally you will stop time, fire off a few attacks at an enemy or multiple enemies, and then resume time for everything to take effect. The end result is pretty satisfying to set up, execute, and watch unfold. This time mechanic also enables you to cross obstacles, avoid traps, and evade enemy attacks. Like I said earlier, the mechanic really drives most of the game. And the soundtrack on top of it is pretty darn good and really helps elevate the overall experience. In terms of the things you'll find in the game are the obvious power unlocks like double jumping, sliding, etc. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you start the game with the ability to float after you jump. Something I kept forgetting while playing the game, in part due to the seemingly low jumps from your character. You get used to it eventually though, and especially once you get the double jump ability. The float mechanic makes much more sense then. You also find power-ups like knives, which increase the amount of attacks you can make while the time is stopped. You'll also find alternate attack skills like an auto-aim attack which fires off a slew of knives to nearby enemies. Another one is a chainsaw attack which has you throwing an axe forward in an arc. This last one reminds me of the axe attack from Castlevania, remember that? Same thing. Besides the normal enemies you find during your adventure, there are also obviously bosses to fight. These can be quite challenging when compared to the normal enemies. You have to remember to use the time mechanic effectively if you want to emerge on the winning side. As you kill enemies, they drop jewels which you collect and are eventually able to sell for money. And this money can be used to purchase consumable items like health regens and mana regens, and a few other more permanent items like the +1 to knife attacks I mentioned a moment ago. I have to say I hated the way this shop was implemented. It's very cumbersome to both navigate the selection and make your sales or purchases. Many times I found myself reaching a specific quantity of jewels I wanted to sell and quickly pressing the button to sell, only to find myself back in the previous screen because the default action was to cancel and not to proceed with a sale or purchase. Very frustrating indeed. Another thing I did not dig was the pause menu. Besides not being able to change game settings during gameplay, you can only do that right after launching the game and before the title screen. You also can't see your inventory, and then there's the weird block thing in the upper left of the corner. Nothing gives you any hints as to what that is or how or if you need to use that. The teleporting in this game though, now that's nice. And you know, it's not anything different from other metroidvanias, but the user interface makes it very easy for you to see where you are teleporting to. And that's thanks to the giant vertical red lines that guide your eyes quite accurately. And that's where I'll leave this one. Overall, I'm satisfied with the game, though when it comes to metroidvanias there are definitely others that I would prefer. For anyone interested in the Touhou universe, this is probably a must-have. For folks that just like metroidvanias in general, like me, then this is definitely something to consider. It's also worth mentioning that at the time of this video, the game has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. So you know, the majority of people can't be wrong. So have you played this yet? Are you waiting on a Steam sale? Let me know in the comments below. Well, that's my overview for Touhou Luna Nights. Thanks a lot for watching. Please have a wonderful day and I'll see you on the next one.